What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, and today is the much anticipated latest installment of the monthly King of Fighters Allstar Power Rankings podcast. For those of you guys who are new to the channel, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, as we're going to be diving into the latest shifts in the championship metagame. But in order to do so, back with me again is my illustrious co-host, founder of Omega Guild, live PvP expert, S4iNt. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, hi Theo. Hey, thanks for the introduction as usual. We've been here before, guys. So this is just another, another update. I think today's outline would cover the four new characters since our last update, which is BS Krizalid, BS Geese, SS Iori, and SS Kyo. So apologize for skipping, kind of like the last BS cycle. But the reason for that is because Netmarble released BS like back to back with the SS characters, so we decided to just put it all together in one shot for today.
Yeah, it made more sense just to wait the extra week or so, because with the way Netmarble was rolling out these banners, if we would have put it out, say, for instance, a week ago, it would already be outdated, so what would have been the point, right? But I do feel like there is quite a bit for us to talk about, because these banners were extremely big in the metagame and shifted a lot of things. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned this because we kind of forgot a fifth character. Do you remember there's a fifth character that was added? We just kind of forgot what it was or who he
I
was.
know exactly who you're talking about. Would that happen to be a character that you couldn't max out unless you spent money on the game?
Yes, the guy, the bald dude, who used to be gold, by the way. And the funny thing is, technically, he's like a gold right now.
It's funny because someone the other day had asked me where my review video for Lin was, and I'm just like, what review video for Lin?
Yeah, so Lin will also be covered today, although there won't be much to talk about him, simply because it's not that effective in both PvE and PvP. Is that correct? For PvE, Theo?
Well, I'd be lying if I said that I've tested him out thoroughly across a bunch of different modes. I mean, I've trolled with him quite a bit in things like in Infinite Battle and League and things of that nature, but I haven't really done my due diligence with him. I took him into a few different modes and he seemed okay, but yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot there, to be honest with you. But I mean, I guess if you're a free-to-play player and he's a new character for you, he might get you through a little bit of content, but still.
Yeah, it's always free. In PvP, he is decent, but you actually need to open. More about that later, anyways.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about him, but I do think we have quite a bit to go over today, so we'll go ahead and throw him on the pile. But I think that the first place that we should probably start is we'll just kind of start from the top here and start out with the Boss Syndrome Volume 2 characters, because we do have 4 new Fest characters to talk about. I guess technically 5 now, but with the Boss Syndrome characters specifically, I want to start there because we've had them the longest now. But with these 2 characters, how have they really shifted things? Because I noticed that all these characters we're going to be talking about, with the exception of Lin, are right there in the top tier right now.
Yeah, so before we dive in, I also want to explain the format of which we do our tiering. So if you look at the left, it's the 3v3 no restrictions tier list, and then on the right is the 1v1. So it's very important to read the assumptions that I've highlighted for both this tier list. So they're slightly different. The 3v3 is assuming a normal championship mode, where basically when you tier a certain character, it's its effectiveness over 3 rounds. That's it. Versus the 1v1 tier list, which is I tiered the 1v1 tier list for the effectiveness of the character, assuming at the first round, which is a big difference, guys. So in championships, right, when you hit round 2 or 3, you carry PG over, so that breaks the round. So therefore, I decided to tier it this way because it caters for a wide variety of situations in PvP. As you might find out, other people who have released tier lists in the past, they get confused because of the lack of assumptions. And people would argue over these assumptions. So I decided to split it into these 2 formats in order to answer as many bases as possible. Yeah. So for the 3v3, I'll discuss. I think for the for majority of the conversation today, we'll probably discuss on the 3v3. Yeah, I might bring out some 1v1s here and there, probably with Geese, because he's probably, in my opinion, the best 1v1 character in the game right now in championships. So anyway, let's start off with 3v3. Yeah. So for Krizalid, Geese, and Yori and Kyo, they've literally changed the entire meta. So if you look back in the previous meta, Rugal used to be in tier 1, King used to be in tier 1, Mai used to be in tier 1 as well. But essentially with these 4 new characters that came out, they kind of pushed them off your top 6 picks. And reasonably so. If you look at the way Netmarble has actually designed the new characters, right? So BS and SS, S and BS, Chris, Geese, and SS Kyo and Yori. They've made them a little bit more tanky, which is, they have much more survivability, that's one. And they have a lot of cores that I would call them anti-layer cores. Now, I called this out a long time ago. I said that the way to counter layer was to basically reset your skills or reset your cooldowns by X amount of seconds. I think I mentioned this a while back in one of our previous podcasts. Like, they should release a set that, if you hit an opponent and he has a set card, you can cause your opponent to have his skills reset for 2 or 3 more seconds, so on and so forth. So I know they did release that in the new BS and SS card banners, but they're just not as effective as the inbuilt anti-layer resets from BS Krizalid. In my opinion, that's the reason why he's in tier 1 and right at the top in the 3v3 list. It's because he has a passive core where, if you hit him, your skills will be on cooldown for 3 more seconds. So that's in my opinion the most powerful core in the entire game right now for PvP. So I mean, there's so many anti-layer cores right now from these 4 characters. Another one is, of course, if you look at Yori and Kyo, right, amazing stuff, but they have armor reduction. Sorry, they have damage reduction and as well as damage immunity. So you can't just blindly spam skills. You need to consider the fact that they'll take much less damage or no damage at all. And they are also able to act as anti-sweepers during the second round, simply because if someone has 3 PG and it goes into the second round and you use it, they take little to no damage. Yeah. And it's the same for Krizalid and Geese as well. They may not have damage reduction in their cores, but they have damage reduction on skills. So this includes Krizalid's S2 and then Geese's S1. Yeah, so in short, I didn't want to dive directly into each individual character first, but the reason why the entire meta changed is because they made these characters, 4 new characters, much more much better in terms of survivability, and as well as having reset cooldown timers in their skills and cores, which I didn't mention for Yori, by the way. So Yori also has, if you connect with his S2, which is a counter attack / retaliate skill, he also causes your opponent's skills to reset for 3 more seconds. So that's really amazing. Great for anti-layer. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in general, these guys, probably the most brain dead character among all of them is Geese. Brain dead means ease of use. Kyo's number 2. Number 3 is probably Krizalid. And then number 4 is Yori. So what it means is that these guys are, it takes some effort to learn how to master them. Geese is probably the easiest, so I'll probably take him out of the 3. So Geese play style, if you're not that skilled and if you use Geese, you'll probably be able to kill higher skill players simply because you just need to trigger the fear effect, which right now nobody has CC resistance to. And it's 40% per active skill wing, if you hit the opponent. So that's as good as the round over. And then in most of the cases, if you have his 3 PG, it's not just round over, it's the game over, because you can win the next 2 rounds in a row as well. But in short, the other 3 characters, Krizalid, Yori, and Kyo, They require a bit more higher skill, much more skill than compared to say BS, Orochi, Merlin, and Mai for sure, and King of course. So at the end of the day, because of this requirement of a higher skill ceiling, it's not easy to spam with them, and it requires you to be focusing a lot more on fundamentals. That includes dodging and blocking, so on and so forth. Yeah, so it's interesting, but it's changed the entire meta in that sense from an overview point of view. Yeah. Yeah, and it's been great.
Yeah, and I think that there's quite a bit there to unpack. I mean, because I believe that in our first podcast where we had covered Kim, for instance, when he was released, we had talked about quite a few things that are actually relevant to today's conversation. Like, for instance, one thing that you had mentioned in that podcast was with the lament of getting that S2 on the Kim that had the infinite reset basically as long as he got lucky enough to continue to hit it. We've now seen that added into these two new SS characters, which we had talked about in that original podcast, how powerful that was and the potential implications if other characters down the road got that sort of mechanic. So how has that affected things? Because I imagine it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, for the reset to skills with no internal cooldown, which I didn't address just now, it's more of an offensive feature. So it's not anti-layer, it's pro-layer. But the key thing is, I mean, the point what Theo is saying is that because it's now inbuilt, right? There's less reliance on needing the layer set, which I agree. But here's the catch. Right now, besides layer, there's no all other sets are just not as effective. So after all, even if a player has internal cooldowns for resetting here and there, and reset of skills here or reset of type of skills there, it doesn't really matter, because if they don't come up with something that is as effective as layer or almost as effective, people are still going to use layer sets. So in that sense, right, it's still more valuable to have anti-layer capabilities right now, because everyone's going to be using layer. So even with the fact that they have internal resets, I don't think that's as threatening as the anti-layer capabilities that they have. Yeah. So the internal reset is really damaging. It happens to be on their S1, which is projectile. So if you happen to reset it a couple of times, it's instant win. I think it's a bit silly. It's not really needed. Strong. But Netmarble wants to, I guess, keep up the revenue.
Well, I can't confirm nor deny that, but yeah, I mean, that was something that you and I had talked about quite a bit in that podcast, and I know it was something that you and I had kind of theorized on, because once Pandora's box is open like that, it's kind of hard to close it again, so to speak. So it's one of those things too where you start to wonder kind of what the thought process is, if there even was one behind that sort of mechanic, because really, I mean, I don't see the benefit to it. I think it's one of those things that's kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, it's sort of mindless. I guess you could put it that way. But yeah, it's one of those things where I wasn't too sure how that had affected things in the metagame so far. I know it's still pretty early, but it is a very powerful mechanic.
Now, the issue with this is, that I have with this is that basically this no internal cooldown thing creates more chances for layer itself to reset. So in that sense, it's a bit silly for me. It's a bit overkill. But the only saving grace is that it dropped. So the previous character was Kim Fest, and he had a 30% chance of, resetting his skill, which is his petrified skill on S2, without any internal cooldown. Which means you could just keep using it if it just resets on 30%, which is a bit silly, right? The only saving grace is that Kyo and Yori, who have it for their S1s, it's dropped by 10% to 20%. If you ask me, it should be at 10%. But yeah, actually, if you ask me, sorry, I take it back. It shouldn't even exist because they're already so strong. Yeah, yep. So that's something I have that I think against it, which I don't think it's necessary in the current meta. Yeah, for Kim, all right, maybe look. I mean, for Kim, yeah, because he's superbly reliant on S2, right? And it's a high risk, high reward kind of character to draft. So in that sense, I think he has a place. But for Yori and Kyo, it's not high risk, high reward, man. It's high reward and low risk. So why make them so much more powerful? So yeah. Yeah, if you ask me, Netmarble is also doing some testing. They want to get some data points or feedback by releasing this new mechanics in the game. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, it's still pretty early. I mean, at this point, as of the recording of this podcast, those SS characters are only a few days old, so time will tell, but thus far, it's pretty impressive how they've already left their mark on the championship meta and really have cemented themselves there. So I do think that these are going to be characters that are going to be hanging around for quite a while in championship.
Yep, for sure. So to deep dive into specific characters, right? So we look at 3v3 as shared in the 3v3 tier list. We look at tier 1. So how do you look at this list, guys, is that from left to right, whoever's ranked on the left is the highest in that particular tier. So it's left to right. Okay? So Krizalid, in my opinion, is the best character in the game right now for PvP, specifically in championships. Reason for that, like I said, he has a huge... he's really versatile. He's able to handle all situations. Basically, he can give hell to any character right now if you play him really well in an optimized manner. He has disable dodge on his S3. He has removal of PG on his S3. It keeps you in the air. His S2 has damage reduction 75% on command. It's also a grab which opens the opponent if he's blocking. And of course, his S1 is also another grab, which opens the opponent on blocking. And he's the only, if I'm not mistaken, if you look at tier 1. Yeah, so in tier 1, he's the only he's the only character in tier 1 that has 2 opening moves. That's another reason why he's why he's at the top of the tier list. And opening moves are really important. Opening moves, maybe let's not call it opening move. Let's call it when you break open your opponent, so you can it's like guard breaks, CCs, which is crowd controls, and grabs. These are all opening moves or moves that can essentially break open your opponent's blocking. That's what I meant by it when I said opening moves. Okay, so he's the only character with 2 opening moves in the entire tier 1. Actually, if you look at tier 2, there's only a few other characters which have more than 1 opening move. So there is Lolly Chang, which in all her skills she has a 40% chance of stunning. Chris, but due to his bug, he has 2 opening moves. Previously, it's just 1. So are you aware of the current core bug with Chris, Theo?
Yeah, with the core CC effects right now all being bugged on some of these characters, is that what you're referring to, I'm assuming?
The core ones, yeah. So basically, if you hit him, you'll get petrified, guys. It used to be you gotta hit him while he's being stunned, then you get petrified. But I think Netmarble screwed up somewhere during the 7DS update, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the understanding that I was under, yes.
Yep. So this tier list takes into consideration that the bug is there. So if you remove the bug, Chris will be in tier 3. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So my point stands is he also has 2 opening moves now because of the bug, his S3 and his core. Yeah, that's it. Just 2 of them. The rest. Yeah, so 2 characters from tier 2 have 2 opening moves, and 1 character from tier 1 has an opening move. 2 opening moves, sorry. Which is Krizalid. Yeah. So Krizalid is really strong. If you look at it, if you take into consideration everything, right, the only weakness, in my opinion, in his entire kit is that his S1 puts you in standing position, which means he's vulnerable to counter attacks. But that's pretty much the only weakness that I can comment about him. Or maybe his 3PG, maybe if it lasted maybe 1 or 2 seconds longer, maybe that would be good. But yeah, so pretty much he's the perfect he's almost flawless in the current PvP scene right now. But just take note, right? You need a lot of skill to use him. He has a high character skill ceiling, which means he's not spam. You can't use him to spam your skills. You actually need to have fundamentals in terms of catching and dodging, and knowing how to execute and time your skills, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and of course, I think he and Geese were the first character that came with the core that if you hold block, you can remove PG from your opponent, which is excellent, right? In my opinion, that's also anti-layer, anti-spammers, as in players who spam, where you can actually remove PG as part of the game tactics or strategy in order to win the round. Yeah, and then and of course the biggest mechanic that came up with him is the fact that if you hit him, he'll remove or he'll cause your active skills to be reset for 3 seconds, plus 3 seconds. So it's really, that's in my opinion the best defensive core. Sorry, I take it back. That's the best core in the game right now. Yeah, not only because it's anti-layer, it's anti-grab, it's anti-gut break. Like you can't open him easily because of that as well. Yeah. So all in all, excellent character. So drawbacks is the fact that you need to play him well, and that he has a very short 3PG, and the fact that his S1 puts you in standing position. So that's my comments about him. Yeah. Plus points, I mentioned all of them. Way too many plus points. Yeah. Okay. So for Geese, very different character. I like the fact that they made Kreese and Geese extremely different. Geese is more like a if Krizalid is a tank, then Geese is like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he hits hard and he hits fast. And he's definitely categorized as a sweeper. So I would put Krizalid as a anti-sweeper, but Geese is a full-on sweeper. So full-on sweeper means if you win him, if you're using him and you win the round with PG and you carry over the next round, there's a very high chance you can sweep them the entire you just sweep all the remaining opponent's characters and just win the game outright. And the reason for that is, of course, it's 3PG. It lasts really long. It's probably about 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's about 10 seconds.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. He has the ability to fear you, which is a unique CC, which no one has resistance to right at the moment. And his fear comes from every single skill because it's a core effect, which means if your skill connects, it has a 40% chance of fearing for 3 seconds, not 2 seconds. 3 seconds is a game winner, because what it means is that your opponent, in a clash situation, if he uses an armor skill, and all armor skills, basically super armor or hyper armor, last for 3 seconds. So what will happen is, basically, you're kind of vulnerable for a split second because it lasts for 3 seconds. So your armor skill would definitely end slightly before the end of the 3 seconds of fear would end. What it means is that there's a window for you to actually punish the opponent. And that's the reason why it's so strong. If it's just 2 seconds, it'll be a very different story. If it's 2 seconds, I'll put him lower in the tier list. But it's 3 seconds. And the fact that you can't have resistance to it, that's another huge one as well. And then if you look at all his skills, right? Basically all his skills have a knockdown effect or a knock-up effect, which means if you get hit by it, it's very easy to chain the rest of his skills. So, not to mention that it also has PG removal from his S3. His S1 has damage reduction of 75%. It's both his S3 and S1 have really high priorities in terms of projectile priorities, which means they'll override other projectiles. And of course his S2, his weakness, pretty much he's quite paper, as in he's quite a glass cannon. And also another thing is that a lot of people forget that his S2 has a 70% chance of guard breaking. It's not a full 100%. So that's another thing. You could actually lose the game just because it doesn't proc. Yeah. So those are things that Netmarble didn't give him in order to balance things out. But more importantly, is the fact that all his skills connect very easily together, and you don't need skill at all. You could just literally press your buttons without timing. It's silly. He has also an internal reset on his blaster skills using S2, so he doesn't exactly need layer even. It's crazy. He's basically the most offensive character in championships right now. I don't recommend playing against him unless you're really confident that you can avoid his S2. But frankly speaking, it's not that easy. Yeah, and don't forget his 3PG. It's ridiculous. It's full screen. There's a small window of which you can actually avoid it. It's when you dodge, just like you have to be really close to him. It's the same window as you trying to dodge the 5PG from Original Zero. So yeah, guys, so you can actually dodge the 5PG from Original Zero. And you can also, it's the same dodge window as King's 3PG, which the Sunflower comes out. You can actually dodge that as well. So that dodge window is, you have to be very close distance to him, and you have to dodge just right before he actually casts 3PG, not after. If you do that, right, what will happen is his entire 3PG animation would just cancel. Okay, it's the same for King's 3PG. No, sorry. King's 3PG wouldn't cancel. It would still go on, but you won't get hit by it. Same as Original Zero's 5PG. It would still go on the animation, but you could actually just dodge it. Continue to dodge to the other side of the screen. So yeah. So all in all, great kit, most offensive kit at the moment. Great for clashing, great for spammers. Players who have the spamming style, who don't like to think so much, and just rushing for 3PG, and then sweep the round from there. Frankly speaking, I don't approve of that kind of gameplay. If you play that kind of gameplay, I recommend you change your gameplay style, or you'll find that you won't be a very consistent player because of that. Yeah. So all in all, BS characters great. I forgot to mention they also have a passive that gives them 2 seconds of super armor if they sustain 5 consecutive hits. And of course, their passive PG removal when blocking. Great kit. Really excellent kit. Yeah. So if you look at the 1v1 list, Geese is actually right at the top. So right now, if you play Geese in your first round, you probably have the highest advantage on paper versus every other character simply because of that 40% chance to fear. Yeah. It's crazy.
One might even say that he might be a nightmare in Championship. Sorry, I had to do it. Well, actually, this brings up...
Oh, he is.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, I agree with you.
You know me, I can't resist a bad joke. I had to do it. But with the new characters coming out, we also have new cards. So I do want to throw this in here real quick because it potentially does have some PvP correlations and effects that are involved as far as its viability. And I wanted to see if the City of Darkness set had actually made any waves yet in PvP, or if you think it will, considering the fact it does have that juicy PvP effect on it, but I wasn't sure if it had made any waves there.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about layers still being the most effective. So the whole issue here is they needed to make the Nightmare set a little bit stronger. So I think Nightmare would be relevant if it gave you the 3 seconds skills reset or cooldown reset for 3 seconds more for all types of skills. The whole issue is the Nightmare set only does it for strike skills. And then the latest one that came out with the SS characters, what set do you call that?
That is the Gears of Fate set, I believe.
Right. So that does it for the blast skills. So in my opinion, they should have just made the Nightmare set, or it's not skill type specific, it's all skills. If they did that, that would be I would be drafting all my characters, 6 of them, with this set. Basically, so except for Krizalid, of course. Sorry, so 5 of them because Krizalid has it inbuilt. So I would, if they made it all 3 skills, all 3 types of skills, basically all skills, to reset for 3 seconds, I would put it on all my characters. No doubt about it. Yeah. But the whole issue is they didn't do that, yeah. And it was a bit silly. Because right now, if you look at it, then it's still better to have layer. Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is now, of course, you know that we have to get a third set that's geared towards grab skills. I mean, it's just got to happen at this point. That's pretty much the position they put themselves
Which
in.
is going to be stupid because there are very few grab characters. It's really silly. I don't think they designed that well at all. Whoever is the person who balances out PvP, if they even have one, I don't think he's doing a good job. Yeah, he needs to do a better job. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, to Yori, right? Yori is a anti-sweeper. Really strong character in terms of being a tank. Two cores that reduces damage and as well as giving you damage immunity. The fact that he can remove PG while blocking as well. The fact that his S2 is a retaliate and it causes your opponents to have similar to the Krizalid core, except it's on the skill knight now. So every time you hit opponent with S2, your opponent has a +3 seconds cooldown, reset cooldown on his skills. So, just if you look at the entire setup, he's there to be an anti-sweeper and as well as anti-layer. So his damage-wise, pretty high. Not as high as Kyo, but it's not easy to catch with him. So although they gave him an interesting skill, so on his S3, it's similar to the S3 from Rugal, which is armor removal, 60% chance. It's okay. It's not too bad. It's probably one of the best skills that he has. I would argue it's actually S2. But the problem with S3 is that it's very slow. So you can see it coming from a mile away. And the second thing, it's actually dodgeable as well. So for those who know, right, grab skills are easier to dodge than strike skills, assuming the strike skill guard breaks, and also assuming that the grab skill is able to go through a block. So in that sense, you get extra frames to dodge compared to other skills that opens up your opponent. So fundamentally, if you play against him, it's easy to avoid his attacks. But it's very hard to play with him simply because he drags the game to neutral and long run, and that's where he gets the advantage. So in that sense, he's pretty good character because he's the perfect anti-sweeper. Right now, he's the best anti-sweeper in the game. It used to be Athena, so now it belongs to Yori, and he has a place in the meta because of that. Because we do need more anti-sweepers, and we need more anti-layers. Yeah. I want to comment about his S1. It has the internal reset cooldown, 20%, pretty fast. It's the second fastest. I think him and Kyo, Yori and Kyo's S1 is the second fastest projectile. The fastest projectile in the game is still Nameless's S3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And in terms of priority, I believe Nameless is also higher. I could be wrong. You guys can go and check. But yeah, really fast, catches people off guard sometimes, especially on the back dash, back dodge. S2 pretty slow, but usually used as a counter attack as opposed to open. His S3 is the one to open, of course, because it's a grab and it has a chance to remove armor. Yeah. So the thing I want to talk about is his 3PG. So his 3PG and KOs are really strong. It's full screen. Right now, I haven't discovered a way to dodge it yet, or awaken out of it, or basically how to counter it. For now, I haven't discovered. I'll let you guys know if I do. But in short, it's kind of like you win the game and the round once you reach it. But the difference is it's harder to reach it compared to other characters like Nightmare Geese and Mike. So you actually do need to string your combos correctly, and you do need to catch and open your opponents. Yep. Okay. So Kyo's in the same situation. The reason why I ranked him slightly lower and actually behind BS Orochi is because Kyo does not have the reset of skills, +3, cooldown reset of skills, which is what Yori has on his S2. But what Kyo does have that's better than Yori is that he has a faster animation speed for his S3, which is exactly the same as Yori. They pretty much have the same kit, just that Kyo deals more damage because if you are caught being on fire, he deals 60% more damage for his active skills. It's quite ridiculous. And then for Yori, he can be immune to. Actually, what is Yori's passive skill? The one that. Do you know what Yori's core passive skill is? That's in the same slot as Kyo's. I kind of forgot.
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head. That's something I would have to look up on my end. I can do that if you like.
Give me a moment, guys. Sorry about that. Let me see.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, right? Because a lot of people, whenever they see those teaser trailers, they feel like there's not a whole lot you can take away from them, but there is quite a bit that you can take away from those teaser trailers when they drop them. For instance, my data miner and I, Steven, he and I had been talking about when these trailers came out for these two SS characters, about how Kyo looked like he was going to be considerably faster than Iori, which definitely boded well in PvE for him. And of course, as we know, Kyo is the better of the two in PvE by quite a bit, but it's funny because you can actually derive quite a bit from those trailers.
So it's crazy, guys. So I just read it. Sorry. So I did actually make a mistake. So actually, Kyo deals less damage by his cores compared to Yori. Yori deals 80% damage more if opponent is affected by darkness and burn. Kyo does 60% more is affected by burn and radiant damage. So I think the only difference between them is that 20% extra damage from Yori. But the difference is that Kyo can open much easier because his animation speed is a lot faster for both his S2 and S3. So that's a big factor. Yeah. Both have 30% PG gain. So all in all, I still think Yori is better. So just Yori is more defensive oriented, and then Kyo is more offensive oriented, and they're almost exactly the same. So the only thing that really is totally different for them is it's funny. Have you seen their cores? That if you are both drafted in the same team, they have extra effects.
Well, it's kind of funny because in PvE, for example, not to get too far away from the subject at hand, but in PvE, my joke has pretty much become that Iori is Kyo's hostage at this point. It almost feels like you have to have him on the team whenever you're using Kyo, but yeah, it's just kind of funny how they work that way.
Yeah, it's quite funny. So for Kyo, right, he increases his active damage by 20% if Yori's on the team. So that's the extra 20%. But what's different is that actually Yori's setup is that if Kyo is in the team, which means they must be drafted into your 3 lineup. That means your opponent must not ban them both and they are appearing on your active lineup. It's the funny thing is, if Kyo is in the team, then Yori is immune to darkness and stun, which is very, I don't know, it's maybe they're exploring with it. It's a bit unusual. But yeah, it has its uses. But the thing is, if you're playing against a stun-oriented draft lineup, I don't see that guy unbanning both the characters. Yeah, because that would be detrimental to him, or at least he'll have to ban one of them if he's gonna let Yori through. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, so I think so if you look at all of that, right? So I believe because Kyo is more offensive oriented, and he doesn't have the anti-sweeping. His anti-sweeping is not as strong as Yori, simply because he's also an attack character. So there's some characters that even though although his cores are anti-sweeping, with the damage reduction and as well as the damage immunity, there's certain characters that can still do 3 PGs at the start and kill him outright. Which kind of explains why BS Orochi is also I ranked BS Orochi still ahead of him. Reason for that is, look guys, BS Orochi, once your opponent makes one mistake, it's kind of like over for the next. It's very similar to Nightmare Geese, right? Except that for Nightmare Geese it's easier to open. For Orochi it's a lot harder compared to Nightmare Geese, which is why Orochi is still ranked really high in the 3v3 setup. Because if you make one mistake against him, he just wins everything outright. It's ridiculous. So I think Netmarble has mentioned that, I'm not sure where I heard this in terms of a source, but I think they mentioned that they don't want to make characters as OP as Orochi again. I don't know where I heard this. Might have heard it from a guildmate who mentioned it, that he read it from somewhere, but I can't confirm the source, and I agree with it regardless. So yeah. So Orochi's still really strong on the 3v3. Merlin, Athena, and Merudus is still in tier 1. I don't want to talk too much about Merlin. She's the second most brain dead character in terms of spamming. First being Orochi. She's pretty spam heavy, my friends. With a layer set, she can get 3 PG within, I don't know, the first 2-3 seconds of the round if you don't block, or if she opens you. But yeah, that's why she's still in tier 1. The only con about her is that she doesn't have a retaliate move, so she's a bit weak to certain skills that puts her in standing position even, and she can't do anything about it unless she has awakening. Yeah. Athena is still in tier 1 because she's an anti-sweeper as well. And you do need anti-sweepers to balance out the round, guys. Because if you don't have enough anti-sweepers, what will happen is that you'll draft a very glass cannon, high risk, high reward team, and it doesn't pay once you lose the first round, for example. Meliodas is pretty strong. I'm not sure when I put Meliodas in the tier 1 previously, but now he's in tier 1 simply because in the old tier 1 used to have people immune to stun, and Meliodas requires you has a 50% chance to guard break and as well as getting a stun after that. So in that sense, he was kind of neutered in the past because in the previous meta, there were a lot of anti-stunners. Now there's less anti-stunners, so he's back in the game. I don't really like him as a character because he depends on the dice roll. So you gotta open with the 50% chance. If you don't guard break and you don't stun the guy, it's almost like you will lose the round. It's a bit silly. The only other opportunity for you to survive is that you remove his armor with his S2, which is once again another gambling dice roll RNG effect, which I don't like, which has got armor removal at 50%. So all in all, the only reason why he's in tier 1 is because CC is back in the game. So if you look at tier 2, same thing. There's some shifts. Tier 2 in the 3v3 list, Lady Chang, same thing. The meta now is weak to CC, so you'll see her in the fight. Same thing as King. King was actually used to be tier 1, but he's a strong sweeper as well. The thing is, it's not so easy to catch with S2. But because of the way the tier 1 meta is happening right now, he's just not as effective compared to the past. Okay. Mai dropped a lot. Still a threat. But frankly speaking, if you know how to use her, if you know how to play against her, she's not so much of a threat because most of her skills put you in standing position. Actually, all her skills put you in standing position. So, yeah, but still a threat because if you do make one mistake, she can sweep you. So Chris is also a new mover because of the bug core. So I think I explained it just now. Basically, if you hit him now, you'll get stunned. Petrified. So in my opinion, he's a good anti-sweeper now. Previously, he wasn't an anti-sweeper, but because of his bug core, he is anti-sweeper. I personally, I won't use him because I know how to play against a Chris. Okay, so Diane is quite interesting. So Diane shifted in the meta as well because once again, tier 1 meta is now weaker to CC. So Diane could prove a big threat against CC because she has a 3-second stun, right? Kim, same thing. Same thing as Rudy. So this guy's moved around simply because of the CC being a little bit more viable again. The one I want to say rip is BS Rugal.
I had noticed this. I didn't want to say anything, but I'd noticed that he had fallen quite a bit.
Yeah, BS Rugal used to be in tier 1. He's fallen quite a bit because way too many ways to counter him now. SA armors, DIs. You can't string a combo and one-shot anyone anymore. And if you ask me, his biggest weakness is that his own retaliation skill puts you in standing position. That's the whole issue with him. Yeah. If they change his S2 to knock you up in the air without a chance for a retaliate, I think he'll be much better in the meta. But as of now, no. Yeah. So everyone else shifted. I'm not going to talk about the rest. The couple of... Okay, so if you look at mini shifts, like Geese, Krizalid, I shifted them slightly because of their what's the word?
The new finishers, you mean?
Yeah, you could use their BS variants of the 3PG on them. Yeah, so probably I want to comment about Geese, as in red attack Geese at tier 5. He's a lot more viable during traditional fast weeks now. It used to be much less viable, but because once you hit 3PG, it's pretty much game over. So definitely much more viable. Yep. Yep. Okay, and last but not least, Lin.
Yeah, he's making big waves down there in what is it, tier 8? In case you guys are having trouble finding him down there.
He's a tier 8, right at the end of tier 8. And okay, guys, so I'll just keep this short, right? So the problem with Lin is that he doesn't have any opening moves. Basically, you can just keep blocking, and he can't open you. So Leia is not the best on him. You need a Ryogo because you need a chance to break the opponents. Because if you don't break the opponents, then how do you call that? If you don't break the opponents, there's no way you can be effective with him. Means they can just block all the way, right? So he needs Ryogo. One interesting thing about him, though, I want to share with you guys. His S2, right, has a very high stagger rate. Do you know what hit staggering is, Theo?
Yes. And I had noticed that in the brief time I had put into him in PvE as well on my end.
Yeah, so it's very similar to Gonitsu's S1, where if you get hit by it, even if you have armor skills, you'll kind of be like staggered, and you'll slow down, and you can't do your animation, and you'll be slowed, and basically your opponent can do a lot of things to you while you're being staggered. Yeah, so it's the same thing.
Yeah, for a example that people might understand with, for instance, Rugal with his dark barrier, his little energy shield that he puts in front of him that staggers quite a bit. It's akin to that. That's what staggering is.
Yeah. So I think the only plus point to Lin is that he has a very easy infinite basics. Which is annoying. But frankly speaking, if it's tier 8, if my opponent does that to me, I'm okay with it because it's a low tier character. Because if he gets the opening, I think he deserves it. I only have issues if you have tier 1, and if the infinite happens, then it's a bit annoying lah. Yeah, and it's not as fun. But if it's tier 8, I don't mind. I think the opponent deserves it. Yeah. Yeah. So there are a couple of shifts as well. Of course, Lady Geese shifted, and Rio. Poor Rio. Everyone was. Yeah, he's totally ineffective. But because of his freeze core now being triggered not based on stun but based on just hit, he's more relevant during traditional fast weeks. And tier 7, I think he used to be tier 9 or maybe tier 8. I can't remember. Yeah. So take note. Some of you might be thinking, why isn't fast kill, as in red balance fast kill, higher tier now because of the release of the 3PG from SS Iori? It's because you can't equip it on red balance fast kill. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, same with the Ioris, such as Instinct Iori and Orochi Iori. Neither of them can use the new Iori finisher card, and so on and so forth. And that was something that I had kind of expected, to be honest, because with the way that they were trying to pay homage to the King of Fighters 97, I got the feeling that they weren't going to be able to use those, unfortunately, and that ended up being the case.
Okay, so you can do some testing, Theo, but I'm not sure whether the option cards for Yori and Kyo in the past can be used on the current SS Yori and Kyo. So that will be quite interesting to check. Have you done testing for that?
I want to say that it does. I've done some limited testing on it, but admittedly, I have not had a lot of time to test that particular card a whole lot, but that is something I intend on doing.
Yeah, although it's I would argue it's not best in slot, because I think the damage reduction, the DI effect from Yori doesn't stack with his core. So in other words, you could both trigger at the same time, and it's kind of making it useless. Kyo is slightly different though. Kyo, his option, if you hit SS Kyo, and if that option card works, you'll be on fire, which means your opponent will deal 60% more damage to you. So that's quite significant. He doesn't need to connect with S1. Sorry, is it S2 that sets you on fire or S1? I can't remember. S2, right?
I believe it is the S2, yes.
Okay, which means he doesn't need to connect S2 and you'll be on fire, and he could use any other skill and you'd be taking 60% more damage. So there you go, guys. That could be pretty strong for Kyo. But I haven't done the testing. You guys can go test whether or not the old Kyo 6-star option card works on SS Kyo.
Yeah, it would be very powerful, and I've tried it out a few times, and like I said, I do believe it does work, but I'll have to do some more testing, because I am working on putting together a showcase for SS Kyo for later on this week for my viewers, so that'll be something I'll bring up there and talk about.
Yep. I would say it's quite a decent card to equip, but you're sacrificing cooldowns, so yeah. And anyway, the burn time is 3 seconds. It's not that long. So it deals significantly more damage because it's 4% increase in penetration and 1.7% chance to increase crit. But yeah, effectively that's like increase of 5 to 6% more damage if you take into stacked multipliers. But in short, the loss of cooldown may not be the best, but you could make it up for the fact that he's burning for 3 seconds, and you don't need to open with S2, and you can just use your rest of the skills to deal damage. Yeah, maybe that's an option.
Yeah, and it's not like he needs much help with his damage output, but yeah, that would be a very good card. And like I said, I've tested it a few times, but I'll have to test it out again as I prepare for my spotlight video, like I said, because that would be very good. That or somebody in the comments section can let us know.
Yep. So that's pretty much the breakdown for today, guys. I mean, I didn't really cover 1v1. Okay, you know what? Let me go through in just a couple of minutes. It's pretty fast. So like I mentioned, 1v1's format is not the effective use of the effective value of the character over 3 rounds is the effective use of the character at the first round when no PG and everyone's at 100% life. So if you look at it, BS Geese is up there. I've already explained. Yori, Krizalid, Kyo, BS, Orochi. So where it's interesting is that King is in tier 1 here. So I have to mention that if King catches you with S2, guys, it's kind of like he sweeps you for an entire round, assuming he has layer. Right? So he also has an internal cooldown for his own reset for S2. There's a 30% chance, even though there's an internal cooldown. So it's not like Kim's S2, which has no internal cooldown. But point is, once he hits you with S2, right, there's a very high chance that he'll get 3 PG, assuming he has layer, and he'll just sweep you for the next 3 rounds. So that's why he's pretty threatening still in as a 1v1 character. But the whole issue is if you don't perform, then you're gonna lose out, and your opponent will probably win the next 2 rounds. Yeah, high risk, high reward. Same as Merlin. So Rudy, it's interesting. I put Rudy here, right? I put Rudy here because of the fact that once again the meta is now vulnerable to CC again. All your old anti stunners are not as viable as today. So he's still going to be quite threatening. And of course, if all in all, it's with Leia, right? Once you connect against the newer characters, if you stun them, you can also reset on the layer for S2 and then stun again, and then do your combos almost indefinitely. Simply put, Rudy has a kit where if you execute his skills pretty well, you can basically chain your combos indefinitely. And this is not even assuming that you're doing infinite cancels on him, which is also a possibility. Yeah. Okay. Minotaurus, I didn't put him high on the 1v1 because he's very highly dependent on that 50% dice roll. Kim, no counter attack skill, very, very short range on S2. Those are the reasons. Chris went up, of course, because of his core bugs. Yeah. So yeah, so all in all, I think those are the major changes for the 1v1. Yeah, Red Geese went up to tier 4. So like I mentioned, pretty strong in traditional fest because of the new 3BG that Nightmare Geese. You can equip Nightmare Geese's 3PG on Red Attack Geese. Yep, so that's why he jumped as well. So for the rest, not much movement. Maybe Rio, yeah, there we go, because of the bug call. But yeah, Lin kind of stays where he is. Because at the end of the day, even at a 1v1 scenario, he doesn't have, gut break. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I want to say that covers all of the new content that's come out over the course of the past month. I don't believe we're forgetting anything.
Yeah, I think I covered 7DS in the previous conversation, right? In great detail as well. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, you definitely did. And I think the only thing I would like to throw in on that topic is the fact that I'm very proud of my girl Merlin, who's still managed to find her way into that SS
Actually, I want to make a
tier.
comment about Merlin, guys. I think I've been reading the forums and the Discords. People are complaining that she's a bit OP. I don't ban her as much as I used to. Okay, so to handle Merlin, right, guys, you need to understand that there's a blocking window for her attacks. So S2, if she S2 you, right, there's a window of which you can dodge immediately after the block. It's quite similar to Mai's S1. Actually, it's very similar to a lot of characters, right, which have no opening guard break skills on their strike skills, and they have hyper armor as well. So it's the same dodge window as Orochi's S3, same dodge window as SS Kyo's S2, same dodge window as Mai's S1. Yeah. It's not the same dodge window as Yori S2 because Yori's S2 is very slow and there's a lot of windows for that. And it's also not the same dodge window as characters that create a CC immediately after they, open you with it. So I'm not taking into consideration things like Rudy's S2 or Geese's S2, which is also a guard break skill, and doesn't take into consideration Krizalid's S1. All in all, basically, there's always a block/dodge window for all strike skills that create hyper armor but have no ability to guard break or CC. Okay, guys, that's a key point. It'll be great for you to learn how to avoid these attacks because otherwise the only alternative is to use your own hyper armor and clash. And if you do that against a Merlin, rest assured she'll gain PG faster than you. So I don't recommend that, and she can freeze you faster as well. So that's one of the key ways to defeat Merlin. I have a lot of people asking me how to do it. Players who can do it consistently. If you go to Yurgen's channel, one of our Korean players in our guild, pretty famous in the Korea server. If you look at Snow, she does it quite well as well. Yeah. So there are quite a lot of players who know how to do it. You should learn from that.
Yep. And I do think that pretty much covers all the topics that we were wanting to hit on today. I'm not sure if there's anything, looking at it here, unless there's anything that you can possibly think of that we might not have hit.
Well, I mean, if we could go back to the big picture, I'm just really hoping that Netmarble releases more anti-layer stuff. They really need to remove the layer meta. Like completely remove it. What I mean is that they either come up with a counter set or they come up with a set that removes the need for layer. I don't think PvP is enjoyable as enjoyable if people are just going to be dependent on layer. And we've had a lot of people in Flag and complaints regarding the fact that layer was released. In fact, we had quite a few guild members as well who left the game because of layer. But the point is, it's I think Netmarble probably realizes it a bit. It took them months, but if you look at the current meta, I think you guys should hold on to your faith that it is improving and it is balancing out to be more anti-layer. So that's really good. So I'm really happy with the release of Kyo and Yori. I did exceptionally well this week for championships. I think I did 50 games and like I went 9K with like near 90% win-loss ratio. And it helped that I didn't desync much this week compared to like other weeks. But I suspect because I didn't drop many 7DS characters. But yeah, but point being is it's changed the meta. It's made it less anti-layer. Sorry, more anti-layer. And if it's more anti-layer, you'll find that you'll be able to play more consistently and win more consistently as well. So all in all, if it's more anti-layer, it'll shift the focus more on skill to fundamentals as opposed to just pure spamming and equipment reliant. Yeah. Pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming back on the podcast and doing this with me, buddy, because this has definitely been informative, and I do feel like this will answer quite a few questions for a lot of people out there as it pertains to not just the boss syndrome characters that we've now had for a little bit of time, but also the new SS characters, which obviously we have not had for near as long and are still a bit more of a question mark as far as their impact. So glad you could clear those things up. But there is one more thing I do want to ask you before we go ahead and call this a day. But somebody had asked me in our 7 Deadly Sins podcast for the power rankings about if you could ban, say for instance you're looking at all 4 of these new characters, you have to ban 3. Which 3 are you banning?
Oh, banning. This depends on playstyle and your knowledge of your opponent's playstyles as well. So this is a very tough question. So one of the key competencies for doing well in championship is your ability to draft, pick, and ban. If you ask me, right, there's no straight answer for this. So I can give you an example. If I know my opponents, they're really spammy, which means they don't really have skill, or they're not as skilled, and they don't have fundamentals, then I would ban the spamming characters, even though like brain dead characters. I classify easy to spam characters as brain dead characters, so aka Orochi, BS Orochi, King, and Merlin. So I've played against lower ranked players, and I didn't ban their. Oh yeah, sorry. Another spammy character is Nightmare Geese. So when I played against a lower ranked player, which I know his playstyle is spammy, I actually just banned his King, Merlin, and Nightmare Geese or Orochi BS. Like anyway, he didn't draft 4 of them. Point is, he only drafted 3, and I banned all his spamming characters. And I actually just gave him Krizalid, Yori, SS Iori, and SS Kyo. Because I know it takes more skill, and you can't spam with them. It won't be effective. So yeah. So that was an easy round for me. Yeah. So that's part of the reason why I can also consistently play well. It's because I'm able to pick, ban, and draft well. So you need to understand that the pick, banning, and drafting competency of this championship requires you to really have more knowledge and data about your opponent, your own playstyle, what you're good and weak against, and as well as whether or not your opponent. I mean, this one is tough to find out, but whether or not your opponent has no layer on some of their characters, because not everyone has 6 layers, right? So yeah. So in that sense, you ban that accordingly. Okay. So so I gave you a specific example. I can give you another example, but it's not as specific, but it's a little bit more like a guiding principle, which is if you're playing against a player who likes to drag around, then you might ban characters that have advantage for dragging around for him. So for example, Yori is really good for defensive players or players who like to drag around or like to go into neutral. So that's another guiding principle that you can apply. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I do, again, appreciate you coming out here on the podcast. As always, we do these monthly, so for those of you out there who are new to the channel and have not seen our podcasts before, we do these every month, so make sure if you haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe, because it helps the channel out quite a bit. And yeah, guys, I hope that this was informative to all of you, and you were able to have a lot of your questions answered. You know that you can always drop a question into our comment section, and myself and Saint, we're usually pretty good about getting back to you on those things. But I guess before I let you go, buddy, if you want to go ahead and plug all of the proper socials, go right ahead. Where can people find you, and where can people get more information like this from you?
Yeah. You can find my tier list in the forums and as well as our guild Discord. So Theo and I are from the same guild, of course. I post a lot of publications in both of these platforms. So feel free to just pass it around. So I do notice that some of our publications get posted in, say, the Reddit, Confast Reddit, and the Facebook forums as well. So Facebook groups, sorry. So that feel free to just spread it around. I'm cool with that. Yeah. But the only thing, if you do spread it around, please do not remove the assumptions. Some people have removed the assumptions at the top, and then they just paste a picture of the tier list. Very misleading. People won't understand. So I highly recommend that you paste the assumptions, which is you can see on the screen itself right now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. Theo, thank you for hosting me. We're really happy to continue to serve the community. Hang in there, guys. Netmarble is making changes. The netcode has improved slightly. Although these things are here, they did caveat it with a beta tag. It's a beta server at the moment, but I believe that once beta is over, I think they'll solve the issues of desync. The netcode has more improved in terms of latency and input lags, which means cross-server connection, which is already quite good, will be even better. So I myself, I never used to be able to play against guildmates in North America and Europe, but I've been playing a lot of friendly matches with them now because of the new netcode. And although it's full of bugs right now, once things get sorted out, it's gonna be a fun time. Yeah.
Yep. There is good things on the horizon, hopefully, for all of us who love this game, because it can't always all be bad. So I know it's been a rough month or so, but it is what it is. But like I said, guys, if you have other questions or you have any comments that you would like us to see, make sure you post them below. Like I said, me and Saint were pretty good about getting back to you guys and monitoring that stuff. So let us know if you have any other additional questions based on any of this information. But as I said, hopefully you all found this to be informative.
Sorry, one more thing, Theo. So if you guys want to join our guild, just let us know as well. So recently our slots have opened up. We're happy to take on players who who has a passion for PvP in general. So just drop us a message in our Discord. All right?
Yeah, definitely. And then we can all hang out and chat even more. So, well, Saint, as always, I know I've said it a million times already, but I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Continue. Game over.